Before we begin, how many people here have traveled from outside the U.S.? Wow. Wow. And how many people from the U.S. have traveled from outside Missouri? Wow, so that's the majority of people. So I'm going to ask you, just pretend that you're all from Missouri for the next half hour. And the reason I'm going to do that is Paul Rogers famously said that, "I think I see" is not a scientific statement. And of course, the motto for the state of Missouri is show me, the show me state. So I want you all to say, show me the evidence, show me the evidence. And that's what I hope to do here tonight. So the Crown of Thorns, traditionally, the crown has been thought to be in the shape of a circle. After all, the relic of the crown in Paris has this shape. But some believe it to be more of a helmet shape, arguing that such a configuration would account for the additional wounds visible near the nape of the neck on the Shroud of Turin, but not necessarily in the area of a circular crown. So, despite the relic of the crown having a circular shape, some believe its size is evidence for it being a base for a cap of thorns. So in 1870, Rohalt de Fleury, noting its inner diameter of 210 millimeters, pointed out that such a crown would rest on the shoulders. And I made a template, and I tried it on my head, and sure enough, it rested on my shoulders. But I don't have a lot of hair that might, stick out and do that. So I tried it on my wife, who has this enormous head of hair, and it rested on her shoulders as well. So he's correct. So he argued that a cap was required to keep the crown above the level of the shoulders. It makes sense. And you've probably seen this image before, but we're indebted to de Fleury for this image. It appeared as the frontispiece of his book, Instruments of the Passion of Our Lord Jesus Christ. So we all know that the Poor Clares put the patches over the burn holes in 1534. But they had a report, and they talk about the way in which the shroud came to them, how it was treated, but also their experience of it and what they thought it showed them. So here's what they say. The nape of the head, pierced by long, big thorns, which are so numerous that one can see by that the crown was made like a hat and not a circlet. When one considers it attentively, one sees the nape more tortured than the rest, and the thorns driven in farther, and the traces of blood under the nape are bigger and more visible than the others. Now, I haven't done an exhaustive literature search, but I think this is the earliest indication of anyone saying that the wounds in the nape of the neck indicate for a cap or a helmet. And in the same century, at the end of the same century, Professor Afonso Peliado shared the same view as the sisters. The forehead wounds do not indicate for either a circular or helmet-shaped crown. I think this is pretty obvious that if you had a circular-shaped crown, it could cause those forehead wounds as well as a cap. And of course, the sides and the top of the head are not visible. Yet, is there another way to account for these wounds that are in the nape of the neck? So current syndenology, this is a photograph of Vernon Miller showing the forehead wounds and the blood wounds in the nape of the neck. So this is a quote from Dr. Zujibe, and all the emphasis is emphasis that I added. Because the head region contains a plethora of blood vessels, the blood would run freely down the face. This is very dramatically depicted in the Turin shroud, which shows images representing rivulets and seepage points running down the forehead, and confirms that the crown of thorns was plated in the shape of a cap and not a circlet. And here's the source for that. I like Dr. Zujibe a lot of his different theories and stuff. I just can't fathom that statement. I don't understand why the forehead wounds indicate for a cap or a helmet versus a circlet. Dr. Buckland talks about, again, the wounds in the nape of the neck. These blood stains appear not only on the front, but also on the back part of the scalp, and high at the vertex of the head, again, my emphasis, and their configuration is such that the implement was like a cap which rested on the head. But we know that the vertex of the head in the back view is not visible. Maybe it's just a slip and he used the wrong word, but he did use it, and that's the reference for that. And then lastly, Dr. Sebastiano Rodante, same photo, he says, and since the injuries reached the parietal occipital area, we suppose that the crown of thorns was in the form of a cap. And so what is this area? And so the green area is the parietal bones, and the occipital bone is in the white. And he's saying because the wounds reach that border, that indicates for a cap and not a crown. So further, the Fleury argued that the circular Paris relic was used as a base to which branches of thorns were attached, creating a helmet of thorns. If you look closely at that relic, it's not just branches circular. There are 16 bands of other branches that tie it all together and hold it tight. Just remember that in the construction that I get to. So issues to be considered with a helmet-shaped theory. Roman soldiers would first need to create this circular base of thorns. And if it's the relic in Paris, it's a true relic, then they would also add these 16 bands and then fasten additional branches to create this sort of superstructure. And would they have taken such effort to mock their prisoners? So how much effort would this have taken? So maybe some of you know shroud photographer or news shroud photographer Aldo Garisi. He actually attempted this. Did you know him? Yes. Did you hear about this story? He needed 2 hours to create such a helmet. So maybe the soldiers did similar. Maybe they had a team of artisan soldiers working on this. But, it's after the scourging. They have to bring their prisoner back to Pilate, and they quickly mock our Lord. 2 hours is a long time. The soldiers' goal was to mock Christ as a king. You remember the Jews were saying, we have no king but Caesar. Well, neither did the Roman soldiers. And their experience of their king's crown was that of their emperor. He wore a circular style of crown. The elaborate helmet-like crowns didn't come much later than the 1st century AD. So here's a medallion from the 4th century, and it shows the circlet. And there's also this third private revelation to Blessed Catherine Emmerich. So she says, the crown of thorns was made of 3 branches plaited together, the greatest part of the thorns being purposely turned inward so as to pierce our Lord's head. Having first placed these twisted branches on his forehead, they tied them tightly together at the back of his head. My emphasis. So the shroud shows the greatest number of wounds, as we said, from the crown of thorns located at the back of Christ's head. With the 3 branches of thorns tied together in this very spot, we would certainly expect to find there the greatest number of wounds. So further revelations. Blessed Catherine Emmerich again, and at least one other mystic, Venerable Maria Agreda, mentioned the crown of thorns being removed at Golgotha, either to remove the seamless garment or in the process of removing the seamless garment, that crown of thorns had to come off. But then they say it was replaced. So there was a recrowning. This would obviously resulted in additional wounds. And if it was a cap of thorns, a helmet of thorns, it would have created considerably more wounds. So think of the replica that we have outside, right outside the door here, with all those wounds. It created wounds. It was taken off at Golgotha. It was placed back on. It was almost a doubling of wounds. So other evidence for the shape of the crown of thorns. Recent research published just this year says this Sudarium of Oviedo been demonstrated with a very high degree of probability to have covered the same head as that in the Shroud of Turin. And the cap of Cahors, a lesser known artifact, is also believed to have covered the head of Christ. What might these cloths indicate about the shape of the crown of thorns? So the Shroud of Oviedo, there is a great amount of blood in the central and principal stains, and these areas represent the positions of the nostrils and of the mouth. In the upper right-hand corner, the diagonal folds that I've emphasized are where the shroud is believed to have been gathered together at the top of Christ's head. A cap of thorns should have produced a great number of wounds and a large amount of blood in this area, yet the Shroud of Oviedo, Sudarium of Oviedo, does not indicate this. I brought this up at Caesar's presentation, and he said that they didn't believe that the Sudarium was tied tightly enough at the top of the head. But they also believe that the forehead stain can only be caused by our Lord being placed face down on the ground and the blood have flowed from his mouth and nostril area to the forehead. Well, if that's the case, then these wounds from the helmet that should have also caused blood to come into that area on the Shroud of Oviedo, and I just don't see it. Again, show me. The cap of Cahors. So, in 2001, Robert Babinet published the results of his analysis, which revealed the patterning of wounds on the cap's interior. They matched the layout of the wounds visible on the Turin shroud. In particular, the spike wounds to the back of the head and the lower part of the neck match up on both relics. According to Babinet, this is proof that these two shrouds were part of the burial cloths of Christ. There are 5 prominent stains, 3 of which are on the inside, and there are also 10 smaller stains located on the cap. And testing confirms the elements of human blood. So, as with the Shroud of Sudarium of Oviedo, the cap of Cahors does not provide evidence of the wounds nor the amount of blood expected from a cap of thorns. And the inner and outer portions of the cap, highlighted there, reveal relatively unstained areas, just in the areas where we would expect a great deal of wounds, a great deal of blood. So wounds from the crown of thorns. So the random angle of thorns suggests that not all of them would have been square to the surface of the skull. Not all of them would have been perpendicular to the surface of the skull. Some thorns may have pierced the skin, struck the skull, continued against the skull, under the skin, and then exited. Thorns at such tangential angles would have created 2 wounds each, entrance and exit wounds. Might the figure 3 forehead bloodstain be the result of an exiting wound? All this so far is just theory. So, it's been a theory of mine forever. In February of this year, I was able to run an experiment.
Which part has been your theory forever? The exit with the thorn?
Yeah. Well, not just that place, but any place, tangential thorns causing multiple wounds. So I was able to run this experiment, and in the thesis, there are just tons and tons of pictures, but you get the idea here. So, some of us don't need a bald wig, but my mannequin did, just to simulate the skin. And you can see in the middle of the forehead that there was this one thorn that created an entrance and an exit wound. But the one just near the right eye, if you look close enough, there's an entrance and an exit and a re-entry wound. So you've got a single thorn creating 3 wounds. Now, I did this a number of times with a recrowning effort, and we were able to produce 3 thorns that had these multiple wounds, and 2 of them created 3 wounds. My first attempt, I could not get the crown situated. Because of the thorns that come from the in their diameter and pointing inward, they sat on the top of the head. It was more like a halo than a crown of thorns. So I had to put a lot more force and break these thorns that were pointing inward to get the crown to come down. It talks about the soldiers beating our Lord over the head, and I think that was one of the reasons they couldn't have it sit down. So here's a short video, 19 seconds. Hopefully the volume is turned up because there's some noises you need to hear. He's turning up the volume. So the noises you're hearing are the thorns breaking. In the top, near the top of the head, there is a broken thorn, and it leaves a wound above the plane where the circle of thorns rests. I didn't expect this, but a circular crown can create wounds near the top of the head if they're pointing inward, but they need to be broken first to set the crown correctly. So typically where a circular crown of thorns might appear, and here's where the wounds are in the nape of the neck. Two considerations. One we've talked about before. Might the tying of the branches be the cause for these wounds at the nape of the neck? And then someone proposed that the absence of the neck in the frontal view is due to Christ's head being bent forward. So might this forward position also cause the wounds at the back of the head to actually appear higher on the head? So if we tilt the head forward, then those wounds go with it. And it may give this appearance that they're up actually higher than they are. So here's an artist's rendition of branches tied at the back of Christ's head. This is taken from the Turin crucifix. And remember that medallion of Constantine earlier? So there it is. And it's not just the circlet, but it's these things that, how they fastened it. And perhaps if the Roman soldiers were aware of that they duplicated that when they created the crown of thorns. So this is an image from the back of the Shroud of Turin, and the forward bent position of the head causes an absence. Again, I said of the image of the neck in the frontal view, but it causes a more visible aspect of the neck here, and I've sort of outlined that in yellow. Might the blood stains that are higher on the head have been caused by these inward-facing thorns from a circular crown that I had mentioned earlier? So conclusions. So the experimental results show that a circular crown of thorns can create wounds near the top of the head and above the position where it rests on the skull. The Roman soldiers' awareness of their king's crown as a circlet would have been a strong consideration in their mocking Christ as king with a similar circular crown. Possible exit wounds from a crown of thorns as well as a recrowning at Golgotha would have created additional wounds. And in the case of a helmet or a cap, these additional wounds would have their blood flows considerably greater than those from a circular crown, having no or few thorns positioned at the top of the head. Other cloths which claim to have covered Christ's entire head, like we mentioned earlier, do not provide evidence of wounds and bloodstains all over the head, as we would expect from a helmet or a cap of thorns. And then lastly, the bloodstains in the area of the nape of the neck, traditionally thought to be the result of a helmet, might have been caused by the method creating the crown revealed to Blessed Catherine Emmerich. So a summary of the indications that were just presented here is in a table on the next slide. And there's some subjectivity here, but the Shroud of Turin, there's blood stains in the area of the nape of the neck. And the indications, if it's for a helmet or a crown, it gets a 1. If it's neutral, it gets a 0. If it's against it, it gets a -1. So in that case, the circular form and the helmet both get a 1. Because it can be formed in the manner talked by Blessed Catherine Emmerich. Blood stains in the area of the forehead can be accounted for by both shapes. The small number of wounds in the higher head area, yes, with the circular crown. Well, we would expect a lot more with the helmet, so I give that a -1. Same with the areas of a lack of blood and few wounds. The relic of the crown in Paris, the helmet shape prevents it from resting on the shoulders, but these inward-facing thorns that my little crown set up on the top as a halo would have done the same thing with the relic in Paris. The time to construct, I just have a hard time with this 2 hours, so I give it a 0 for the helmet, but just minutes for the method described by Catherine Emmerich. The recrowning at Golgotha, we'd expect this doubling of wounds, more blood, and it's just not there. So a 1 for the circular and a 0 for the helmet, and so on with the Shroud of Oviedo and Cap of Cahors. My score, the maximum of 10, there's a 10 for the circular shape, and the 3 positives for the helmet are negated by the 3 negatives. And so in my world, I've convinced myself that I think we should rethink the shape of the Crown of Thorns. So before 8 o'clock. And we've got a little time for questions, yeah.
My speculation, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter in the scheme of things, but the Romans were an occupying force, militarily oriented, and I would bet you dimes to donuts that once Pontius told them to produce a King of the Jews helmet, they went to the people that he was the king of. They were the artisans, they were the experts, they had all the people that have the Romans are just brute soldiers.
Yeah.
I bet they went to the nearest artisan Jew and
Perhaps.
made one of these, and they were happy to do it.
Perhaps, I didn't think that I think Pilate ordered them to scourge him, and I think the soldiers on their own, in their playfulness, chose to mock our Lord and do this. But you're right, I mean, they could have.
They just offloaded it to the people that didn't want him.
So here's the thing. If Aldo Garisi is correct, where did the soldiers get the time to make this thing?
Yeah, they would just said, hey, he's your king,
Yeah.
you make it.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a kind of a counter-argument
Yes,
of
yes,
sorts.
yes, sure.
Maybe. Remember that this was more tailored to the sign that was on the cross
Yep.
that named Jesus King of the Jews,
Yep.
Greek, Aramaic, and Latin. And the priests took umbrage at that. They
yes.
they came and they complained to Pilate
Yes.
and said, he's not our king.
That's right.
Now, you could still say maybe they ignored the crown, but if that was their mentality, they may have not liked the crown either. I don't know.
Well, I think they would have seen it as mockery and
Yeah.
happy to
Yeah.
mock him.
I saw a picture, and I didn't catalog it, where you see the soldiers using like a tong or something like that to grab these branch
Yeah,
thorns,
close.
and they slapped it on. That wasn't really a crown. The one in
A
Paris.
big mass, yeah.
Yeah.
A big mass.
Is a glass, and it's, like blown glass, and they just have the thorns in there.
Yeah, there's no thorns. It's just the bulrushes.
The wrapping,
Yeah.
but that's what it represents.
Yeah. By the way, I can't see and I can't find anywhere, I did an AI search about the blood. There's blood on the sudarium, there's blood on the shroud, there's blood on the cap of Cahors. I can't see and I can't find any place that talks about blood on the relic in Paris. And if it was what they say it is, it, to me, should be absolutely saturated in blood. And if it tried to be washed, my goodness, these things were twisted. I mean, if the blood was in between, it would be almost impossible to clean all that. So,
I have a photo, I can look at it and
Yeah.
get back with
Please.
you.
Two things. One is, do you think it's interesting, and it tells you should rethink things periodically.
Show me. Show me.
that are
You're from Missouri.
So, going back to the relic and how that was too big and just.
Yeah.
Do you think thorns on the inside? You found a smaller circlet, got stuck at the top. Do you think they needed it that big with thorns inside to make it fit.
Well, that's what I think that with the relic in Paris, I give it a 1 for both.
Oh, okay.
Both because a cap would keep it from going to the shoulders, but these inward-facing thorns, just like you say,
Yeah.
would keep it from falling to the shoulders.
Now, when I covered it in my video, I did a little research on the pictures, and at the time of Jesus, the Levant, that whole area was disputed. It was fought over by the Parthians and by the Romans. Now, the Parthians had true kings, not Caesars, and so I just show all these coins that show them all with caps.
Uh-huh.
So, that was...
And what time? The time of Christ? First
yeah,
century?
250 to 250 BC to 250 AD. So.
Yeah, a lot of, I mean, this is
I like your
speculation.
ideas with the circlet, especially with the Oviedo, with the Sudarium.
Yeah,
It should be there.
And I have to avoid, this is all speculation.
Yeah.
What our Lord suffered, he suffered for us. Whether it was a helmet, whether it was a circlet, those things don't matter. And if we get picayune about it and start defending my view versus your view, that's not right. First perspective.
You mentioned you weren't sure how wounds on the front could be formed, but if he's wearing it from the time the Roman soldiers put it on him all the way to Golgotha, and he fell on his face and got dust on his nose, then it gets crammed in further at that point.
And people have talked too about if he fell and the cross was behind him, it would have also caused the additional wounds in the back. Press the crown in that way as well, for front and back.
I've been studying the shroud for 10 years, and this is the first time I've heard of the cap of Cahors.
Yes.
What exactly is that?
So this fellow Robert Babinet in 2001, it is a very old and documented relic that's in the Cathedral of Cahors, which is in France. There are people on both sides of the issue, but the people who favor it as a burial cloth of Christ say that after the Sudarium of Oviedo was taken off, this was put on, and at the bottom of the cap of Cahors, there's a buttonhole on one side, and there was a button which is now missing on the other. It was almost like a chin strap. They think, and this is all speculation, they think that was present in the tomb under the Shroud of Turin, even at the time of image formation. And they say it's the reason why you see this, you don't see anything here because the cap of Cahors prevented that. They also say that if it was there at the time of image formation, you should be able to see on the inside of the cap of Cahors an image, even faintly. But I guess it hasn't been examined all that closely from the inside. I don't know.
But how could you see the hair on the back of Jesus on the shroud? You can see the hair, some of the hair coming in.
The cap of Cahors, it's open in the front, and it doesn't go all the way back. It's has a circular cutout like this that would expose where the wounds are in the nape.
I only saw it, there was something, I think Joe Marino had a look at cloths that had some association with this, and he had the Sudarium and the Shroud and a few others, and they had this cap. I don't remember why he rejected it, but he said that he didn't think of it.
Most people do. Most people do reject
It's not
it.
mentioned in the Bible. I mean, this is the first time I've ever heard of it.
Yeah.
And I've heard
Yeah.
that the Jews, when they were buried, and Rebecca might say this tomorrow, they use a patel cap.
That's what Barbanet calls this, yes.
And I thought it was just like a strap that was just something like this and just strapped it under the chin to keep the mouth closed, but I didn't think it came all the way down.
There may have been more than one version,
So, but that's on, so if I research it online, I can see a full view of around it, to see what it's all on.
Oh, I don't know about a full view around it. That picture that I had, that's the best picture I could find.
So how far down does it go? Does it go down to
Only
the bottom?
goes-
No, it's cut out, maybe to the top of the ears.
So that's the back of the hair, like my hair here, it all come out?
Yep,
Okay, I
Yeah.
misunderstood that.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All
And then another
Missourians,
thing
you can go back to your home states now.
Another thing I heard is
Hey, how
that,
you doing?
I heard some scholars saying that the thorn, the type of thorn
You
was a
hear
small
Martin?
bush, and they thought that they just would have cut a bush and just taken a small about this size and just shoved it on his head, a bush.
May well be, yeah, may well
It
be.
just says twisted, right? I mean, I don't know.
It does say twisted, yeah, yeah, it does say
English, I
plated,
don't know what
twisted,
the-
that's true. I forget about that, right, that just dropped.
I traveled to Cowhurst to see
You
that.
did?
And the day before, it had been, the cathedral was broken into, and they took silver and gold, but they left the cap.
They
But I
didn't-
didn't get to see it, because they had it all boarded up.
They probably didn't know what they were looking at.
Yeah. But thank you.
Thank God.
You have a card,
I do.
and I'll look on my,
Yeah, please send me that. Yeah.
Nice job, Mark.
yeah, very nice.
Yeah, very nice, thank you.
I hope my advisor feels the same way. That's a good grade.
Here's your extra credit.
I graduated from.
Well, you gotta buy some crucifixes from Mark,
Oh, yes, so that's my.
shaped like the Turin shroud.